Right now, something major is shifting in Iran near a tiny speck of land called Kharg Island. The United States military is currently positioning the heavy metal hardware. We are seeing the 82nd Airborne Division inching forward, and they aren't alone. A full Marine Expeditionary unit is in the mix, bringing thousands of Marines who specialize in vertical insertion, the kind of guys who don't need a permission slip to land where they're needed. On the flight decks, you've got V-22 Ospreys fueled up and CH-53K King Stallions on standby, providing a sea-based assault force that is already in a position to strike. In the skies above, it's a masterclass in absolute air dominance. You've got F-22 Raptors patrolling the perimeter, while F-35s are quietly mapping every single target on the ground. Meanwhile, EA-18G Growlers, the electronic warfare specialists, are circling the area, just waiting for the green light to tear the local radar networks to shreds. Everything is moving in one very specific direction, toward Iran's oil lifeline. If you want to understand why this matters, you have to look at the numbers. Roughly 85 to 90% of all of Iran's crude oil exports have to pass through Kharg Island before they reach the rest of the world. Every drop of oil loaded at this facility flows directly into the Strait of Hormuz. Think about the geography for a second. When you look at Kharg, you're looking at the choke point behind the choke point. If you control Kharg, you effectively control exactly what flows into the Hormuz. And here is what nobody is telling you. Kharg isn't exactly a fresh, untouched target. It has already been softened up in previous strikes that focused on taking out radar systems, missile storage facilities, and core military infrastructure. That means the defensive layer protecting this vital node has already been compromised. Now, look at the pattern forming in the media. The Washington Post is reporting that the US is deploying airborne troops while weighing options specifically tied to Kharg. At the same time, The Guardian is reporting that the US is considering control or disruption scenarios for the island. These aren't just isolated news blurbs. They are signals. The United States now has the capability to move on Kharg Island on extremely short notice. But the most interesting part of this buildup isn't the massive carriers or the stealth jets. It's the 82nd Airborne Division's Immediate Response Force. This unit exists for one single solitary purpose: getting boots on the ground faster than anyone else on the planet. This isn't a wait-and-see force. They're designed to deploy globally within 18 to 24 hours. That isn't a theoretical capability or a recruitment slogan. It is a demonstrated reality that we have seen play out from the Middle East to emergency responses in Europe. If you want to know what this looks like in practice, look at Operation Just Cause in Panama. Airborne troops secured the most critical objectives before the opposing forces could even get their boots on. In Iraq, it was the airborne units that focused on capturing terrain and infrastructure before the heavy armor even arrived on the scene. Their mission profile is brutal and demanding. They go in first, they secure what actually matters, and they hold it. They don't have to hold it forever, just long enough for the rest of the American military machine to build on that foothold. That means taking airfields, command centers, and critical infrastructure like oil terminals. So how does an operation like this actually work when the ramp drops? It all starts with the C-17 Globemaster III. This isn't just a big cargo plane. It's a tactical beast built for contested environments. It can fly massive distances without needing a gas station in the sky. It can operate at low altitudes to dodge radar. And most importantly, it can dump a massive amount of combat power in a single pass. When it comes to getting the 82nd onto a target like Kharg, there are two main ways to do it. The first is the mass parachute drop. You've seen the footage. Multiple aircraft releasing hundreds of paratroopers in a rapid-fire sequence over a drop zone. But on an island like Kharg, which is only about 20 kilometers long, that drop zone is a nightmare. There is zero margin for error. If the pilots are off by a few seconds, or the wind shifts, you've got troops landing in the water, or worse, landing directly on top of a defended Iranian bunker. The second method is the rapid air landing. If a runway is even partially secure, or only lightly defended, a C-17 can touch down, offload an entire company and their gear in minutes, and be back in the air before the enemy can even dial in a mortar coordinate. Both methods are incredibly risky. Paratroopers are sitting ducks while they're under the silk, and the aircraft are massive targets on their final approach. The second those troops hit the dirt, they are operating without heavy armor and with very little protection. But they trade that protection for the one thing that wins modern wars: speed. This isn't the slow, methodical buildup of the 1990s. This is shock entry, designed to win the fight before the enemy even knows the fight has started. If the order comes down, the operation follows a very specific, lethal structure. Phase 1 is airspace denial. Even with the previous strikes, the Iranian mainland can still project a serious threat over Kharg with radar and missiles. The priority is creating a window. That's where the F-22 Raptors take the lead. They are built for air dominance, using their stealth to operate in no-go zones without being tracked. Their sensors pick up threats before the enemy even knows they're being watched. This allows them to clear the skies and keep a constant eye on radar emissions across the entire region. Then come the F-35s. These things are basically flying supercomputers that act as data collectors and targeting platforms. They identify every radar site, every radio tower, and every defensive node, passing that data across the entire network in real time. Then you have the EA-18G Growler. This is where it gets really interesting. The Growler doesn't always just blow things up, it ruins them with electronic noise. It pumps out false signals and confusion, forcing Iranian operators to question everything they see on their screens. In a high-speed operation, hesitation is everything. If the enemy hesitates for 5 seconds, they've already lost the island. The goal here isn't a permanent occupation, it's about a temporary corridor, a gap in the enemy's awareness long enough to get the insertion done. Once that window is open, the C-17s move in for the initial drop. Paratroopers secure the landing zones and the key roads. At the same time, the V-22 Ospreys start their vertical insertion. It's a game changer because it has the range of a plane but can land like a helicopter, moving troops from ships far offshore directly onto specific targets. Then comes the CH-53K, the heavy lifter, bringing in the supplies and equipment that airborne troops can't carry on their backs. Why do we use both? Because airborne gives you speed, and vertical lift gives you precision. In the opening minutes of a fight like this, speed is the only thing that matters. Once boots are on the ground, the mission shifts to control. Airfields become the top priority to keep reinforcements flowing, and command towers are hit to cut off Iranian coordination. Then you have the oil infrastructure. The goal isn't to destroy it, it's to control the access to it. Whoever holds the pipes holds the leverage. But don't think for a second that landing is the hard part. The hard part is staying alive. Kharg Island is only 25 kilometers off the Iranian coast, putting it well within the range of standard rockets and short-range missiles. Even after a perfect insertion, the threat from the mainland is constant. This is where the support systems come into play. A C-130 gunships provide precision fire from above. MQ-9 Reapers keep eyes on every moving vehicle, and Navy destroyers sit offshore, ready to swat down incoming missiles. It's a race between securing the island and the pressure coming from the Iranian mainland. You might ask why we use the 82nd at all, if they're so vulnerable. They're light infantry with no tanks and limited protection. On paper, that's a weakness. In reality, it's the only option that moves this fast. Nothing else can get there in under a day, and nothing else can seize terrain without a friendly port to dock in. They are the ones who open the door. Once that door is kicked open, the next layer arrives, the Marine Expeditionary units. These are the guys who bring the sustainability. They show up with the logistics, the heavy support, and the aviation assets to turn a quick capture into a stable position. While the 82nd creates the opportunity, the Marines turn it into a reality. We have to look at the real objective here. If you control Kharg, you influence the oil flow directly into the Strait of Hormuz, the most critical maritime choke point on the planet. So it leads us to a massive question. If controlling Kharg Island is the key to stabilizing the global energy market and enforcing order in a volatile region, should the United States use that capability? Or does taking that step open the door to a conflict with Iran that we can't easily close? I want to know what you think. Is this the kind of deterrent power we need to be using? Or is it too risky? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading them. If you want these kinds of sharp, fact-driven breakdowns on US military power, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Share this with anyone who wants to understand what's actually happening behind the headlines. And if you made it all the way to the end, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate your time.